Hey everyone, this is Tamara, and I'm doing a special pre-show opening today because this is the 100th episode of the Shelf Addiction Podcast. I want to take a minute to thank you for listening. Whether you enjoy the book chat episodes or the Pop Culture Sunday episodes or both, I really appreciate you joining me and tuning in every week by downloading or streaming the podcast. Keep reviewing the Shelf Addiction Podcast on iTunes and liking the podcast on whatever your preferred podcast listening app is. When you show me love through likes, positive reviews, and engaging comments, that motivates me to make even more episodes that are relevant and entertaining. I hope that you continue to enjoy the podcast, make comments, email me, tweet at me, let me know if you have any show topic ideas. I want to hear it all and I want to interact with you. Even leave me a SpeakPipe voice message. Any way you want to contact me, I appreciate it all. I hope that you'll join me for the next 100 episodes of Bookish Shenanigans, TV, and movie chats. To celebrate, I'm giving away a $25 Amazon gift card over on my blog, shelfaddiction.com. You can earn as many or as few entries as you'd like. It's an electronic gift card, so this giveaway is international. If you have the ability to receive an electronic Amazon gift card via email in your country, then you can enter. The giveaway will run until midnight Eastern Standard Time on June 30th, 2017. This giveaway is not sponsored. I am gifting this from me to one of you. The link for the giveaway is in the show notes. Thank you everyone for listening, and here's to 100 more episodes. Welcome to a new episode of Book Chat. Today I'm talking with freelance editor, fellow book blogger, and podcaster Sue Brown Moore. Sue is joined by her 19-year-old cat Bailey, so say hi to him in the comments if you hear him. Sue and I have paired up to do a fun podcast collaboration, and today kicks off Passports for Books, Part 1 of 2. We're sharing the literary places we've been and loved in our bookish passport. In a few weeks, you'll want to check out Sue's podcast, Grave Tells, where we'll continue the conversation and discuss places we want to go on our literary travels bucket list. Want to comment on something you hear during today's episode? You can find me on Twitter at Shelf Addiction. You can also find Sue's Twitter handle below in the show notes. Hey Sue, thanks for joining me today. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Absolutely. I'm excited about this collaboration, especially because we're talking about travel, one of my favorite things. So travel and books.
Yes, and the great thing about the great thing about travel and books as opposed to travel in real life is that you don't have to pack. There's no delays. You don't get your stuff stolen. There's, no luggage lost by the airlines. It's just whatever adventure the author wants to take you on. And I found that when I travel in real life, the planning and the looking back is almost more fun than the travel itself. So I love that about the books, is that I get the best experience possible without all the negatives. So it's going to be totally fun.
Totally. And I guess the best thing is when you find books that you really love and you remember the place because the author did such a great job representing it. So these suggestions we have today are, I guess, the best of our recollections of our literary passports, right?
Yes, totally. And, what you just said made me think of a really great one to start with. Mm-hmm. And I think we've both read the Night Huntress series by Janine Frost, right?
Yes.
Bones was, I think he was my first official book boyfriend. I had a serious crush on Bones for years. In fact, I have a story about meeting Janine Frost, and I made a total fool of myself, but maybe that's your way. I don't know.
I don't know. I like hearing when people make fools of themselves. I love it.
Okay, so I went to New York Comic Con. I think it was 2013. It was a surprise trip my husband had given to me for my birthday, which was a little ironic because I didn't actually want to go to New York. It's very big city. I mean, I'm from Austin and now I live in San Francisco, so I'm more laid back, and New York is more fast paced. And I thought, okay, well, we're going to Comic-Con, so it'll be really fun. So, I found out that Janine Frost was going to be there and some other authors that I knew. And she was my huge idol at the time. Like, I just loved her. And I'd never really met a celebrity before. And of course, if you're a reader, authors are your rock stars, right? Like, they're the people we just love. We want to be in their space all the time. So I figured out where her booth was going to be on the convention floor. And of course there was a line. So I got in the long 45-minute line. I waited. Mm-hmm. And when I finally got to the top of the line, she was super sweet. And I was so nervous. I couldn't even talk. And, Kat has red hair. I have red hair. And she was adorable. And she said, "Oh, my heroine has red hair too." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, I know. Oh, I have a blog. I'm from Grave Tales. I love you." And I didn't make it, like, none of my sentences made any sense. I don't even know that I completed a sentence. And she just looked at me with these big eyes like, "I feel so sorry for you. I'm really glad that you're here. I don't know how to talk to you."
No.
Oh my God. And so there was another author just beside her that I didn't even know was there. And my husband, of course, is standing off to the side laughing at me because he thinks it's really funny that I've made a giant fool of myself in front of my favorite author in the world at that time. And my face was red. I have that redhead skin that just turns red at a thought. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like ready to just hide in a corner. And as I walk away, the other author says, "Oh, would you like a book signed?" And I was like, yes. And then I walk over and I don't even remember her name right now. And it's like, I just am paralyzed, right? And so then we leave and I'm talking to Ty, my husband, and I said, "You know what? That's it. I'm done with celebrities. Like, people, they're just people. Yeah. And so since then I've had this, like, I don't really need to meet people. I don't need to have books signed because they're just people. Like, it's really cool if I get to know an author and they know me personally and they give me a personal message. I love that. But I've kind of, like, because of that experience, I pulled back on the stars in my eyes. I guess you could say.
I love when I meet authors that are really popular in books that I love. Like, I would love to meet Janine Frost. I hope that I wouldn't freeze up like you did, but
I hope so too. It was terrifying. But looking back, she was so sweet. And if I met her again, I would be a normal person and I wouldn't freak out. I hope. But I'm glad that I met her. I'm glad I got the experience of being starstruck over with.
Oh my goodness. That's awesome. I love that you met her. And, you guys, if you don't know, she writes the Night Huntress series and it's vampires, right? Love vampires. Love it. Cat and Bones are one of my favorite couples in paranormal romance. I just love them so much.
Me too. And what I love is that series, I think it's technically urban fantasy because of the way the plots work, but it feels like a romance because they are a consistent couple and she doesn't make you wait for the good stuff. You get the good stuff in every book.
Yes. And I love that there's no triangle, right? I love that it's just them. It's about them. And even in Plano, Ohio, things get exciting and crazy, right?
Yes, that's right. I mean, from the very first chapter, she's killing vampires. And she's just half vampire, normal human, but yeah. So what made me think of them to start this chat was that you said memorable places, like things that make you they're like triggers, right? So, girl, I cannot see a Chuck E. Cheese without thinking about Cat and Bones. Do you know what scene I'm talking about?
I do know what scene you're talking about. Oh my gosh, I forgot about that, honestly, but yeah, I do.
Yeah, so there's two scenes. There's that one. Well, okay, there's more than two scenes, but the ones that stand out the most for, like, places are that one. And then there's one in an elevator where they're attacked in an elevator. It's later down in the series. And there was this one elevator I used to get in when I was coming back from work that every time I was like, oh God, am I going to get attacked by vampires? Because for some reason, this elevator made me think of that hotel they were in.
Wow, that's hilarious. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I don't know. I don't have any specifics that I love from that other than I just loved everything about it. Like, it's really pathetic how I can't even verbalize how great I love this series. I mean, I was sad when it ended. You guys check out my YouTube channel. I have all the Cat and Bones, all the books I have done video things about. And when it ended, I was so sad. I was like, oh my gosh, I wanted to cry. It was so sad, but you can always reread, right?
That's right. I need to. I really want to. Because now there's the Night Prince. I think it's 3 or 4 books that just finished. And I think she's doing Ian's storyline. which makes me
Ooh.
super happy because for a long time she said people would ask, when are you going to write Ian's story? And she was like, when it's ready. And I think he's finally getting a story, which is awesome.
Okay. Because I have the last one of The Night Prince to read, so I'm like one behind. I don't know if that's the end of it or if there's more, but I definitely would love to read about Ian. Mm-hmm. It's fun. Mm-hmm. Well, talking about, couples that people love, my next one kind of is another couple, and you guys know if you've been listening to this book chat podcast that I love Mercy Thompson series as well. I don't know. Have you read the Mercy Thompson series by Patricia Briggs?
I read actually, you know what? I actually have the comic books, or the first comic book. It's really good. I tried to read the first book. I think I may have finished the first and gotten halfway through the second. And it's that slow burn urban fantasy. And I gotta have the good stuff. I can't do the slow burn.
That's funny because I think the opposite. So you guys, this takes place in the Tri-Cities area in Washington State. And I actually think they're fast paced. It's so funny how what's the phrase? No two people read the same book, right?
Yeah,
that's true.
That's true.
Yeah.
I guess that's true. My expectations for romance are, pretty specific. So I look for a specific kind of book whenever I'm reading. So, that's the cool thing about following bloggers or influencers is that you figure out what they like. And if you like what they like, you can always know that you're probably going to get a good bet on their recommendations.
For sure. But, I do understand. I think I know what you mean. Do you mean a slow burn as far as the relationship stuff?
Yeah.
That's kind of slow at first. But once you get past, I think, book 3, it's all Mercy and Adam all day. And it's
that's good to know. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
They really play off each other really well.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's cool. So maybe one day you might give it another try. I don't know. Maybe not.
Yeah, girl, it's all about that TBR is miles long. And I really want to do a post on this. There's like a technical limit on how many books you can read in your lifetime, if you think about it, right? Mm-hmm. And I have so many books I want to read. It's like, I want to go back and read the ones I've already read, but then I've already read them. Maybe I should do new ones, but then those are a risk. So yeah. But if you haven't read the comic book for that, it's really good, like really good.
Really?
So check it out. Yeah. And the one for Anita Blake is also really good.
Oh, girl, don't get me started on Anita Blake. Okay, look, now she did not make my list. Her stuff is not on here. I think I read the first 6 books in that series, and I was just so disgusted with what was going on. I don't know, for some reason I was so annoyed. So I just stopped. I cold turkey stopped. I'm like, I cannot do this anymore. It's over. We're breaking up. So
Anita Blake is kind of bipolar because the first 8 books or so, I don't know the exact number, it's basically horror. It's horror with some sexual elements, some like paranormal and sexual. It's anyway, it's nasty. And then the last half is the complete opposite. It's kind of nasty too, but it's nasty in a sexy way, right? So she's a succubus and there's orgies all day, all the time. And it gets old because it's the same thing over and over. I was just getting sick of her getting with the vampire. And then I think his name was Richard. I felt bad for Richard. I'm like, oh my God, man, just get over her. She's the worst. And she's I don't know. For some reason, I just did not like her as a character. I did not like her at all. Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, she's a necromancer, but I think she's also a private detective, and that's a specific character type that I think not everybody likes. Even me, I like some of them, but not all of them. So I totally feel you there.
Yeah, for sure. Well, okay, so what's up? What's up next? What do you think we should go next in our passports?
Okay, so we've stamped Ohio so far, among other places, because Night Huntress takes you to like Paris and, old Italy and lots of places around the world. Let's come back to the U.S. because lately I've been totally binging on True Blood.
Yes, True Blood. Love it.
Even though I watched it way back, and I've been chatting with some friends about this, and it seems to be this phenomenon with True Blood and Sookie Stackhouse is that people would read like all but the last book of Sookie Stackhouse, and then they wouldn't finish it for different reasons, either because they didn't want to finish the series, they didn't want it to be over, or they didn't care anymore, which is sort of like, I'm between those two things, because it got to the point where I was like, just choose someone. Seriously, just choose someone. And then those same people also didn't finish True Blood. They would get to like season 3 or 4 and be like, no, I jumped the shark. I'm done. I can't do it anymore. Right. And that's pretty much was my experience, is that when they got to one of the seasons where things were totally off the rails, not even close to what the books were, I just kind of got bored. So I wanted to go back and experience it again. And it's been so much fun to see, the beginnings of Sookie Stackhouse, like how she met Bill and how she met Eric, and like hearing the accents, it takes me back, because I'm from East Texas, right? So it takes me back, and I love, like, even when they go to church camp, it just makes me get these like happy I'm not necessarily a religious person, but I went to church camp because that's what you do, and so I have all these like happy feelings. Oh, that's my cat. He's saying hi. Bailey's saying hi. Anyway, so I'm going to put Bon Ton, Louisiana, on my passport, both from True Blood, the TV series, and also from the Sookie Stackhouse series.
Well, as far as True Blood, I did not read the books, but I did watch the show, and I loved the show. I really did, all the way up until the end. And it was crap, the final season. I was so angry what they did with it, but I am one of the few that stuck it, out the whole way. But yeah, definitely Bon Ton is a fun place, and I definitely don't know if I'd want to go there, but it's fun to watch and fun, I'm sure, to read about. But
it may not be great for your life expectancy to visit there.
Yeah, you like living, you might not want to go, but
perhaps, unless you're supernatural.
Yes, awesome. Okay, so keeping, I guess, in the U.S., we can talk about West Virginia. That's where I'd like to stamp West Virginia. And I read I guess it's technically young adults, urban fantasy / paranormal romance, I guess, but it's like about aliens, sexy aliens. And that's the Lux series by Jennifer L. Armentrout. Have you read that?
I have not. I've heard about it though.
Oh, I loved it. I fell in love with it so hard. I'm like, I am one of those girls who loved Roswell when I was younger. So to see something with aliens that are human looking and human acting, and, them against the world type of situation, it's really cute and sexy. And it actually feels borderline it's actually new adults, I think, not even young adults. Because, they've definitely got the romance down. There's some adult things going on. But, I really like it. You get the government aspect, people trying to chase them down and capture them. And then you've got the romance going on. So it was a really good read. It's fun. It's light. So I definitely recommend that one.
How long is that series?
Oh, my goodness. I think it was 5 books, if I remember correctly. I read them a while ago now.
That's pretty short. That's not like committing to the 20-something and Black Dagger or something like that.
Oh, girl, no, I know.
It's hard to start a new series when you look at, maybe it's finished or maybe it's not even finished. And it's like 15 books long. And while it may be an amazing series, I look at that and I look at the other books by like 15 additional authors, and I'm thinking, oh, maybe I should try something that's not so long. I don't know.
Yeah, I hear you. So this is a cute short one then. If you want to give it a try, it definitely won't keep you, reading for months. So that's a good thing.
Good to know. Good to know.
Awesome. So what's up next on yours?
Well, I'm going to bring us back across to Forks, Washington, because Twilight.
Oh,
and
yes.
I have to say, Twilight gets a bad rap. And I made some of the best friends of my life because of Twilight. And actually, I started blogging because of Twilight. That's a different story that I won't go into, but it was just like at the right time, at the right place for me. And even though, no, I don't think it's the most amazing writing in the world, just like 50 Shades, I also met some of my great friends waiting in line for the first 50 Shades movie. So I have a connection to that too. But I really respect what it did for the genre and how it boosted visibility of paranormal. And so, of course, the friends that I made through our Twilight fan group, we watched all the movies together. I actually accidentally won a costume contest as Victoria.
Oh, wow.
I think it was the one of the movie premieres. Anyway, that's a fun story. But I actually went to Forks with a friend of mine, and I dragged my poor husband along. And they're good. They're the one for you if they will go on a vacation to Forks, Washington, and not complain about it. Because girl, there is nothing there. It is like it's basically a tiny town. It's like a blacktop stop sign. There's nothing there. And it doesn't look anything like the movies because I think they were filmed in Oregon. They weren't even filmed in Washington for different reasons. So while it was really fun to go there, and we had a pretty cool, quirky guide, I don't necessarily recommend visiting Forks unless you're really, really, really into Twilight. Now, I have friends that have gone back 2 and 3 times, and they have all the pictures, pictures in the woods, and the pictures. Actually, one of them has engagement pictures in the woods. They got engaged in the woods, the meadow. So it was really fun, and I'm glad I did it. But wow, so different.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Now, I agree. I will not be going to Forks, Washington after hearing about that. But Twilight is one of those things. Of course, I read it long before the movies came out. And when I read it, I loved it. I mean, at that point, in full disclosure, I'm not sure how I would feel about it if I read it today, right? But back then, I was all about that series. It was the bomb. And I think, like you said, it really gave a lot of visibility and opened up this genre to people that weren't reading it before. So, yeah, I'm about it. It's fun stuff. All right. So I guess we're still in the U.S. We got a lot to go in the U.S.
I know.
I'm going to take it back across the country again. Let's talk about Boston, Massachusetts.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, so we're going to stamp that state. And I read It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. Now, I think it was last year this book was really making the rounds and had a lot of buzz. And I'm not like a Colleen Hoover reader, so I haven't read other things by her. But this came recommended to me, no lie, 4 different times by 4 different people that, it just came up in conversation. Oh, have you read?
Wow.
It Ends With Us. It's so good. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe I should read it. And I did. And I was amazed by how good this story is. Have you read this book by chance?
I don't know if I should even say I haven't heard of it. So no, I haven't read it. Okay. I missed all the buzz somehow.
Well, you know what? This isn't really a romance though. And it's definitely nothing paranormal in it. Nothing. So this is definitely out of my wheelhouse. Definitely not something that I would have picked up on my own, but it tells an important story, and it is tagged as romance, but I don't think it is a romance. It has to do with abuse, and it's not a happy subject, but it was well written, and it handled that difficult subject matter with grace, I guess is the best way to say it. It was great. It was outstanding, and I did feel like I was in Boston here and there. So I definitely recommend that if you want a little bit more of a serious read, but something that is a good conversation starter. So not as fun as the last stuff we were talking about, but still good. Still good.
Does it have a happy ending to the romance?
You know what? For that type of situation, it's as happy as it's going to get. So essentially, yes, it does have a happy ending, but probably not one that you would think based on who the love interests were at the beginning of the book. So,
okay. All right. So I'm going to stay in the U.S. for one more because I really want to talk about Blue Water Bay. Are you familiar with the Blue Water Bay series?
I am not, no.
So I think it's by Riptide Publishing, and it's based around this cult hit TV show called Wolf's Landing, and it's a series of I don't even know how many books. There's maybe 20. There's a bunch of them, but they're all by different authors, and sometimes authors do a couple of them in different parts of the series, and they focus on specific couples. There's a lot of gay romance in it. I think there's a lesbian couple as well. There may be a straight couple. Riptide is primarily LGBT, but it's really cool because it's in this tiny little town of Blue Water Bay. Washington, and it's idyllic and it's peaceful, but it's also a small town, so that the people are kind of nosy and they're all in each other's business. But because it's the home of this hit TV show where they film it, there's a lot of star power there. So you get a lot of kind of like celebrity watching and fun, like Hollywood type things, but not being in LA. And so there were two books in that series that I really liked. One was called Starstruck, and it was by L.A. Witt. And the other was Selfie by Amy Lane. Starstruck introduces the two main actors of the TV show, and I loved their chemistry. It was just like kind of alpha male pushing against each other all the time. And Selfie was about grief and loss, and it was a very sad book, but it was still a romance. And I loved the whole atmosphere of Wolf's Landing and the way these two authors wrote into the story universe. Very cool stuff.
Okay, I might have to add that to my TBR for real. I think I might do it. On to my never-ending TBR list. Yes. You know, they never end. But yes, it sounds very interesting for sure. So I think I just have one more. Actually, no. Technically, I have two more in the U.S. So I guess we could go back to the other side, the East Coast, and talk about, actually, this book actually takes place in a couple different states. So, you know, New Orleans and then like Philadelphia area. And that is the Vampire Huntress Legends series by L.A. Banks. Now, L.A. Banks is the bomb, you know, or was the bomb. She's, you know, passed a while back, but this was the book or the series that really started my love affair with urban fantasy and paranormal romance. Before that, I read a lot of, what's urban fiction, I guess I'd say, or general fiction and horror. But this really turned the corner, and I was addicted ever since this series. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but I love that this series has a multicultural cast, right? I love it.
So I've heard of it, but I haven't read it. So I'm glad to hear you talking about it.
It's so good. And I mean, she handles, she does a lot of, you know, I guess the main theme is good versus evil in this series. So, you know, you do have some angelic things and you have, you know, the evil things, and then you have, you know, vampires and other type of things, but they're kind of in the context of not science and not necessarily religion. She kind of borders that a little bit, but not in a stuffy way. I mean, it's really just, it's well done. If you like a little, it's definitely some depth there, and it's not for everyone, but I loved it. I just really loved Damali and her counterpart, Carlos. Oh, they're like the business. I'm like, I'm telling you, I would steal Carlos away from Damali if I could. That was, I think, my first official book boyfriend. I'm like, he's mine, not yours. I'm sorry.
That's the best kind of book boyfriend. Like, that's the true book boyfriend, right? The ones that you can't stop thinking about, and you just, you want them all the time. And you're going to read those books over and over, even if it's the same scenes, because you just can't get enough of them. Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh. You know, it's so sad, but it's true. Like, the boys in books are always better. Like, you know, it's not real, but that's why, because it's not real.
You know, maybe a little off topic here, but that I think that's also a scary thing, because it sets these unrealistic expectations for real men, poor guys that have to live up to these amazing characters that come from the best part of authors' minds. You know, like the author can make him as amazing as they want, as complex and sexy and capable and alpha or whatever makes him great. And our poor real guys are like, they're real guys. They have flaws, and they're never going to live up to these perfect standards.
I know. They're not going to turn into a wolf, and they're not going to like save you from some evil demon. So, I mean, you know, I don't know, but
and they're not going to sprout fangs and bite me, you know.
Exactly.
It would probably really hurt.
Yeah, I think it would. I mean, we could jump into a whole nother conversation about people who do that, but we're going to not do that today. Yeah. Do you have anything else in the U.S. Before we move out of the country?
You know, there's one more that is really special to me, and I don't know why this particular series, I say series, it's a very short series. I don't know why it sticks with me so much. I think it's because it reminds me of home so much, because I don't live in my home anymore. Not where I'm from, but it's the Chesapeake Bay Saga by Nora Roberts. And, she's such a big name, and I think a lot of people don't talk about her often. She doesn't get as much, I don't know, I want to say press, but like people, there's not as much like chatter about her because she's been around for so long and she has so many books, right? But the Chesapeake Bay series is, it starts with Sea Swept. It's about a story of three brothers, and I think they lost their parents or something like that, and they sort of had been scattered, and they all came back together. They adopt this boy, and throughout their series, the boy gets a little older, and then he has his own after he grows up. And they do a lot of family picnics. They're in the Chesapeake Bay area, so it's very festive. It's very American feeling, right? So they'll do like memorial picnics and 4th of July fireworks and picnics over the water, and it just makes me feel like, oh, I missed that from my days in Texas, and I want that back, right? I want to experience those things again, but things are different where I live, and so I can always, if I want a picnic for Memorial Day weekend, I can always go back to Chesapeake Bay and read Nora Roberts' characters and feel that special something,
Oh, that's so nice. It's kind of like really cool how you can relate to that on a personal level.
Yeah, and also the characters are just really great. It's a good story. I like it.
Cool. Okay, so I have one last one in the U.S. before we leave the country, and this is one that kind of takes place all over the place, and this is the Passage trilogy by Justin Cronin. This is definitely out of the realm of the kind of books we've been talking about so far. It's definitely dystopian science fiction and horror kind of rolled into one. There's like zero romance going on. Well, maybe a little in the background, but it's definitely not, the main point of the book. There's no power couple. There's a lot of characters, but it's an amazing story about vampires, and not the good part, not the sexy ones we like, but the scary ones that will kill you and you want to run from them. So, this takes you from Colorado to Las Vegas to, Roswell, New Mexico, and even more. But I just loved it. I loved every minute of it. And it's been a long time since I felt that way about a non-paranormal romance read, or urban fantasy read. So I definitely like it. If you want to mix it up a little bit, take something that's a little less mushy on, for size, try it on for size. I definitely recommend this trilogy. And it's a 3-book deal and it's done. And I also did hear that Fox, or I think it's Fox, they optioned it for a TV series. So that could be cool if you like TV series.
Yeah. Yeah. It's always nice to see how they cast and perceive what you read, like how different it's going to be. So like with Bon Tom in True Blood versus what I had pictured is pretty close to what I pictured, but sometimes they're not. So I always get excited and also a little bit worried when I hear there's going to, like, it's been optioned for TV or it's going to be a new series. So yeah, but I'll check that out. That sounds good, actually, because sometimes you want something that's not a romance. Like, I read romance all the time, and sometimes it's good to have something a little bit different.
Well, if you do read it, I hope you let me know what you think, because it's one of my favorites. I was so lucky. I met Justin Cronin at BEA last year. And just a real quick story. Like, no, everyone usually mispronounces my name. They usually say Tamara or Tamira. They don't say Tamara. And so I got in his line. I got to the front of the line, and they have you write your name on a sticky note. So I passed my book to him. He's like, "Hey, how are you doing?" I said, "Great." He's like, "Oh, good to meet you, Tamara." I said, "Oh, you said my name right." He's like, "Well, yeah, that's how it's spelled." I said, "Thank you." So we had a little mini conversation, and it was really cool. I'm like, "Oh, I love that." And, no fangirling. It was just regular.
Yeah, good for you. That's good.
Yes, but I was so impressed with the fact that he pronounced my name right the first time. So he gets kudos for that.
It's the little things, right?
Yes, exactly.
They're so important.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, so I lied. I'm not done with the U.S., but I am done with modern day, our world. So I want to talk about kind of a parallel universe where magic is commonplace. So there's three that really stand out, but let's talk about San Francisco, because not only is it the best city in the whole world, it's my favorite city in the whole world. There's a really cool series by Gail Carriger that is hasn't even released yet. It comes out, the first book comes out in July. I think she's just selling it at Comic-Con, San Diego Comic-Con. It's called The Sumage Solution, and it's potentially loosely related to the Parasol Protector if you're a fan of that, more steampunk. Anyway, it's like could potentially be linked to it. But anyway, it's basically saucy mages, gay biker werewolves, irreverent drag queens in a world where magic is common and public. And a sumage is a mage who basically failed at magic, and so he cleans up everybody else's mess. And it's a gay romance between a werewolf biker who's kind of the beta of the pack, and a sumage who's not necessarily a failed mage, but he thinks he is. And It is the most fun. It is just a ton of fun, and it's very San Francisco. So that's a fun one to check out coming up in July. And then the other thing that I think has been really fun in a world where magic is really commonplace is the Ilona Andrews Hidden Legacy story world. They released Burn for me, I don't know, 3 years ago? So a couple years ago. And then the next book, White Hot, didn't come out until this year. It comes out on May 30th. And I love this story world. I freaking love it because it takes magic as a public thing and it gives it structure. There's like houses, right? And there's primes who are like the powerful magic users. And it's a trilogy, so it's a really short one. And I think it's technically urban fantasy, but it has a romance in it. Really cool, really cool. I've loved those books so much.
Well, you know what? I've been meaning to read something from her for a while now, and it's just taken me forever. You know, that never-ending TBR list. So
yeah.
It's good to know that that's good. Because I definitely I need to read something by her in the next couple of months. Preferably, well, take that back. Not the next couple of months, more like the next couple of weeks. I need to read something by her. But anyway, so awesome. Cool. Thanks.
Yeah.
Let's see. What else? Should we leave the country now? I guess technically we can.
We should leave the country.
Okay. But before we go to another continent, I think it could be fun to go to Mars.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So I would like to check Mars off in my passport. And the book, or the trilogy rather, is the Red Rising trilogy by Pierce Brown. It's another one kind of not in the romance wheelhouse, but there is some romance going on there. But it's a dystopian science fiction, and it's one of my absolute favorites. I love it. It's kind of like, so this guy, Darrow, you know, he is a Red, and the Reds are on Mars, and they work underground, you know, taking care of the infrastructure. And there's a caste system of colors, reds and, you know, golds and greens and yellows, you know, like that. But he kind of learns that the golds have killed his wife. They killed her. And so he kind of falls into this underground, group of people that are trying to take down the golds. So he turns himself gold.
Oh.
Kind of like he goes through a bunch of surgeries and everything to make himself look gold to infiltrate them. And it is a Art of War book. It is so amazing. So I have to recommend it.
I got chills a little bit just listening to you talk about that.
I
think I have to read that.
Yes, you should. Definitely.
I don't know where to go next. You just took us to Mars. That's so far out of the.
I know.
Wow. I'm not sure what compares to that. Okay, well, let's go High Seas Pirates, because why not?
Why not? Yes, let's do it.
So I'm talking Regency era, London. And when I said that Bones was my first book boyfriend, that may not be true. It may be James Mallory, because I read the Mallory series by Johanna Lindsey. Oh gosh, I don't even know how old I was. I used to read, historical romance, particularly Johanna Lindsey, like every book I could get. And Star Trek, not kidding, I read the Star Trek books, like the episodic ones, which weren't part of the series. And Star Wars, all of I was the biggest nerd and romantic ever. But anyway, the ones I loved the most by Johanna Lindsey were her Mallory series. And the one that stands out the most is called, Gentle Rogue, I think. And I just fixated on James Mallory because he was the ultimate bad boy, right? Like he's born into a pretty wealthy family in London. He's considered a rake because of course he gets with all the ladies, but he's also a pirate. He's like legitimately a pirate. He's not a bad guy, but he does some bad things. And he ends up, falling for this woman who's an American. And she poses as his cabin boy, which you know how that turns out, right?
Oh gosh. Oh, I can imagine.
But the whole family is really fun, and her family comes into it as part of the series as well, and so it becomes like the Mallory Anderson series. And her family hates him, and they want to hang him because he robbed some of their ships at sea as a pirate. It's just like, it's the most fun. And people always, if you're not a fan of the historical genre or Regency romance, you kind of roll your eyes and you're like, whatever. But seriously, these are so much fun.
They are fun. They definitely have their, what tropes, I guess, that happen in these, that genre, but I love it. It's fun sometimes. It's definitely a deviation from, what I usually read. So for sure. Yeah.
And Fabio is on at least one of the covers. It was during the Fabio era, which,
oh my gosh,
is such a throwback, right? Like, do people even know who Fabio, like the younger readers today, do they even know who Fabio is and what he did? I don't know.
I don't know. I know I've seen some covers with Fabio on it. I'm like, what?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, they've taken Fabio and morphed him like nowadays. So instead of him having long hair and blonde, he's usually chiseled, short hair. But I don't know, maybe not for Regency, but for, paranormal romance and all the other stuff, they kind of have like a edgier look, I think, to them usually nowadays. But
yeah, I mean, lately it's all been about like leather jackets or suits, right? Mm-hmm. Which doesn't really go with the long hair. I guess the leather jackets could go with the long hair.
Yeah. But I like it short. I mean, I have this thing, like, this is totally off topic, but I cannot stand when a guy's hair is longer than mine. I can't take it. It's just disgusting to me. It's a turn off to me. So I did not love Fabio back in the day. This has always been my thing. But give me a biker or a guy in a suit with short cut hair and a body on the front. I'm like, yes, I'll raise my hand to that one. Yes, okay, I'll look and see what this is about.
So you're not into man buns, is what you're saying?
I am not. No, I am not.
No, I feel you. It has to be just the right look, right? Like I have very long hair, so it's hard for a guy to have longer hair than me. And if he does, I probably wouldn't like that as much because that'd be very, very long. But if the facial structure has to be right. It's like a woman. Like if you're going, the length of hair you wear should complement your structure. And for some guys like that have the long hair and it doesn't complement their facial structure, it doesn't make sense to me. But the ones that it works for, man, does it work? Oh,
I'll have to take your word on that one. Awesome. Okay. So where are we going to next?
I think I chose Regency London. So where do you want to take us?
Well, let's stay in London for a second.
All right.
And we can talk about Me Before You and After You by Jojo Moyes. That is in London. And I think everyone's heard about these books. They definitely made a movie out of it recently. In the book, Me Before You was really, really good. After You wasn't as good, but the first book was definitely memorable, and I definitely recommend the book and the movie because the movie was a really close adaptation, and it's such a unique romance. Like, it's an unlikely couple you would never see together ever in a really horrible situation. Are you familiar with this story?
I must be living under a rock because I haven't heard this one either.
Oh my gosh, girl, they had a movie out and everything.
Yeah.
So it's like this guy, Will, he's in a wheelchair because he had an accident where he became quadriplegic, I think.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
And so he's very angry. He's a very angry character, and it's just, he's got a lot going on. And then we meet, our heroine, I guess, and she comes in as a caregiver for him. And they end up like breaking down the walls and actually starting to like each other as friends. And then it kind of pushes over into something else. And I do have a review on this on my YouTube channel as well, because I don't want to get into the whole story, but it's a very odd pairing, but I buy it. And it's a sad situation with a no-win ending. It's not a happily ever after, but it's definitely an unlikely romance that is told in a good, not necessarily a good quote unquote way, but a unique way, and it's well done. So yeah, another sad one, tearjerker.
You like the sad ones, it sounds like.
Sometimes I do. I'm like a realist. I consider myself a realist. So I always like when while I like to read for escapism, I also, when I'm reading something that's contemporary, I appreciate a real ending. Sometimes happily ever after isn't real, especially when they've gone through so much trauma in the book. I appreciate when it ends in a way that makes sense. And that's true to, life in contemporary anyway.
Yeah, that's actually really true. And it made me think of where to go next.
Okay.
Have you read Laura Kay's I'm going to say this wrong, Hearts of the Anemoi? Anyway, they're the gods of the cardinal compass points.
No, I haven't.
So it starts with North of Need, and that book ripped my heart out. It was so sad. It ultimately has a happy ending, but the entire series, I don't want to give spoilers, but it circles at the very end. It circles back around to that original couple, and some bad stuff happens, really bad stuff that you don't expect. And I liked that. She does redeem it. I mean, it's a happily ever after, right? But when it happens, you're like, oh my God, what? But, oh my God. And then you sort of accept it. You know what? That's part of life. And, it sucks, but it was also written really well. And the whole story is just really fulfilling, but also kind of tear-jerking. And that happens all over the US, but it's also set in the realm of the gods. So okay. I guess I could stamp my passport for some sort of heaven.
Yes, I like it.
Which is fun.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of cool. That's up there with Mars. Absolutely.
Yeah. Sort of.
Yeah. So since we're talking about places that don't really exist, I have another one. I'd like to say it's the magical unknown, because I really don't know exactly where it is other than Fey World. So I'm going to say Fey World.
Okay.
I don't know if I want to go there, but I definitely, in real life, but I definitely would go there for pretend. And I'm going to get there via A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. The third book just came out last month now, and it's just magical. It is. The first book is almost like a Beauty and the Beast retelling, which I kind of found okay. But honestly, things really morph into their own, and this story becomes its own in the second book. It's we jump off of that, Beauty and the Beast, and it just takes a whole turn. It makes a sharp left, and we're off and running, and this book is just better than I ever thought it could be based off the first book. So you guys, if you read the first book, don't give up. Push to book 2. I promise you're going to be like, wow, it's going to be whoa, what happened? It's awesome.
So I guess following our weird trek across heavens and planets and such, I want to go start at the space station. We're a little bit futuristic here, but not too futuristic Earth world. So think about a space station that's orbiting Earth, and it's invaded by these slavers from a distant galaxy who got here through some unstable wormhole. And they raid the space station, and they take captives, men and women, and they take them back through the wormhole before it closes, which of course it does, so you can't get back. And they end up on this place I think the planet's called Carthago, in the Core Magna Arena. And this is Anna Hackett's Galactic Gladiators. So while it is futuristic, sci-fi, it's also kind of historic. It's in a gladiator setting, very much like the movie Gladiator.
Okay.
And I love that the gladiators have kind of an altruistic purpose. You don't know this in the beginning, and it's not that much of a spoiler, but they're they help people. So and the gladiators don't kill each other because they get paid to fight. Their houses get paid to fight them. So it doesn't make sense for them to kill each other. Some of them do, but it's cool because they take these characters and they just sort of shove them into the arena and they make them fight for their lives. They think they're fighting for their lives. And then the gladiator troop itself is saving the people who aren't built for that kind of life, and they figure out ways to get them off world. So really cool sci-fi series that's also not sci-fi, but is kind of in space too. So
that sounds like something I would enjoy, actually.
It's also really hot. It's really hot.
Bonus.
Yeah.
Yes. Awesome. Yes. Okay. Nice one. Well, I guess I'm going to tone it down and come back to Earth and, go to Australia. Now this is another one that I think a lot of people have heard about. HBO has recently did a 1-season miniseries, and I love how they did it. And that is Big Little Lies by Leanne Moriarty. It's contemporary, it's adult, and it kind of, I guess, borders chick lit. And there's a little bit of possible romance, but it's definitely a really well-told story with a lot of components. And I've read other books by Leanne Moriarty, and this is one, I read this years ago, well before HBO bought it. And this definitely stuck with me. So much so that when the TV show came out, I did not reread the book, and I remembered so many details. I'm like, wow, HBO nailed it. So kudos to HBO. If you like drama, this is about a group of parents and all of their children are in the same kindergarten class. In the TV show, there's first grade. But it's drama against the parents. They all, that little mothers who judge each other, and then you get into their relationships, and one has a bad relationship. One has a horrible past that she's running from. One is Miss Perfect, and they come together, this unlikely group of friends come together, and it creates this perfect storm of things that end in a murder at a kindergarten event.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So we start with the murder, and then we go back in time and figure out who died. We go up to the event and we figure out who died at the end. But it's a really, really good story, and I definitely recommend that one.
Wow. Okay. So I have something that's kind of opposite of that, but also in Australia, sort of, if that wasn't confusing. So Joey Hill has a series called Vampire Queen. And it is, oh man, it's amazing. It's one of my favorite series of all time, but it's pretty hardcore. It's definitely BDSM. It's lifestyle, master slave, dubious consent. I mean, there's lots of, edgy themes in it, but she's also very introspective. And, this particular one that I'm thinking of, the character, I think he's Australian, and he's a human servant, and he gets bonded to this vampire woman, and part of his trial is that he has to be hunted by these Aborigine vampire children. Now it's against their code to make children vampires because they go crazy, because they're always in a child's body and they can never be human or full adults and do things that full adults do because they're children. So these children shouldn't even exist, but they basically hunt this guy throughout all the wilds of Australia, and of course he prevails. But it's kind of the opposite of what you were talking about, because in that situation, you have the moms who are in a very normal, everyday kind of deal, and they're in a kindergarten class, and they're all sort of trying to one-up each other. And in this situation, the children are hunting the hero of the story, and they are lethal and awful little creatures.
That's kind of cool.
But the whole series is really, really awesome and hot if you're into BDSM.
Ooh. All right. Well, yeah. Okay. We're going to leave that alone.
Yeah.
I actually only have one more on my list. Do you have a few more?
I do have a few more, but we can stop whenever.
Okay. 'Cause you can do a couple more and then I can just, comment.
Okay. Do you want me to do one now, or do you want to do your last one?
Okay, well, let's do my last one. And this is definitely one that I know you mentioned that you enjoyed as well. And this is Discovery of Witches, the trilogy by Deborah Harkness.
Yes.
And this is definitely an international type of story. It takes you from, England to France to New York, all over the place. And not only does it take you all over the world, it takes you into the past, into the present, and into the future? I don't know. Maybe. I don't really remember the future, but I remember the past and the present. But I really loved it. I and I mentioned to you that the, what's his name? Matthew?
Yeah.
The leading guy?
Yeah.
I didn't like him at first. I really didn't.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, he's too controlling. He's too just blah. Like, she didn't balance him, in my opinion, at first. It took me a long time to get into Matthew, but I loved Diana's character.
Yes.
I loved her character so much. I was willing to deal with Matthew.
Yeah.
And then eventually Matthew got on my good side and all was good. But I definitely enjoyed like reading about witches, versus, the usual werewolves and vampires. So it was definitely, well, they are vampires in this book, but not in the traditional way, I guess. It's a little different. But to focus on witches for once, I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed a strong heroine, as I always do. And I definitely loved going back and forth into time. And I loved traveling all around Europe and other places. So this was one definitely for the memories for me. I loved it.
So that, when you talked about that was the second time in this podcast I've gotten chills, because I don't know what it is about that book. I didn't ever read the second. I think there's three of them, right? I didn't read the second two, just because TBR being miles and miles long. But the first one was amazing. It was just amazing, and I still remember. I remember Matthew and Diana, and I remember like her having to fight in the woods and coming into her power and her being so, and you know what, even now I'm careful about where I leave my hair. It's going to sound really gross, but she talks about in the book how she can't leave any DNA behind because of who she is. And so she'll burn, when she brushes her hair, she'll burn it or get rid of it somehow. And I still think about that sometimes whenever you brush your hair and you end up with little strands here and there. And I'm like, if I were Diana, I would have to burn this or get rid of it. I couldn't just put it in the trash can. And it's those neat little world details like that stick with you through a good story. And I think Discovery of Witches is one of those stories. It's not just a good romance. It's just a good story. And that's why it's been so popular across all different genres and all different types of readers. And also the history in it is just, it's rich and vibrant and so well written. I can't say enough good things about it. I really need to finish it, honestly.
I'm telling you, it was amazing. And in the end, I mean, just a small spoiler. I'm not going to tell you what happens, but Diana becomes one of the most powerful people you've ever seen.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised.
Yeah. And it's like, finally, Matthew, take a seat. Let your woman handle things because she's stronger than you.
That actually would be really nice to see, because I agree with, he was a little bit standoffish at first.
Yeah.
And I didn't love him, but I also liked the vampire lore in that world, that it wasn't so like all powerful, all consuming that you would get in some of the more romantic genres of vampires. So yeah, really, really good one for anybody who has not read that. Absolutely check that one out. And it does take you all over the world.
Yep.
And I love the stories that do that. So the next place that I want to stamp my passport is, I'm going to start in China, but really this series goes everywhere. And it's Nalini Singh's, Guild. Oh gosh, I totally just, I just had a brain fart. I need to look at my notes. Guild Hunter, yeah. Okay, so Nalini Singh's Guild Hunter series, which is basically about archangels and their manipulations of the world to control everything. And the whole series is sort of delves deeper into these supernatural events that are happening. But in one of the books, the Archangel of China does some fairly nefarious things, and some very memorable events happen. I'm not going to give things away, because if you haven't read the series and you want to read it, it's a pretty important step in the series. But she takes you to China and India and like all over the world. And I love these characters. Raphael is the freaking best. And Elena, seriously, badass. If I could be a character, I would want to be Kat from Night Huntress or Elena from Guild Hunter. Badass chicks.
Oh, okay.
Have you read that one?
I haven't, no. And I think I have one of her books sitting around here somewhere, and I just never got to it. But yeah, I know she's a really popular author. I just haven't read it, though.
There's two different series. There's Guild Hunter, and then there's Psy Changeling. And Psy Changeling is a little bit different. It's not the same story world. There's based on three different types of supernaturals. There's shifters. Well, there's humans. Then there's shifters, and then there's the Psy, which are like mental powers, I guess.
Okay.
And so that the storylines are different, but both series are the same in that they have these big arching plot lines that stretch multiple books. And then within each book, you have something specific that happens. So Changeling is more paranormal romance, in that each book is a couple. But Guild Hunter is more urban fantasy because it's all Raphael and Elena, but there's some side stories here and there.
Okay. Because I think it's the Angel's Blood, which is Guild Hunter 1. I think that's what's on my shelf. So it's the first one in that series.
You know, it reminded me a little bit of Anita Blake, and I kind of hesitate to say that because I know that Anita Blake brings bad memories for some people with all the gore. It does have some gore in it because there's a serial killer, and he's an angel, and he's really dangerous, and he's targeting Elena. But it's actually a romance, so it's not like as evil as the Anita Blake ones turned out to be.
See, I don't mind gore. I mean, I'm reading about vampires that will eat you, for real. I don't mind the gore, but I do mind like some of the stuff that Anita does. So I think this character, though, she sounds a little different. So
she's really strong. Like she's not just physically strong, but mentally strong. She's a great role model, I think.
Yes, I love that.
So I don't know if they ever go to Las Vegas in that series. They might. They go all over. But Karen Chance definitely goes to Las Vegas in her Cassie Palmer series. And I think this is another, like, kind of modern day, but in a world where magic is more prevalent. And I forget exactly what Cassie is. She's some sort of supernatural who's being called to serve a role of some sort. And she can time travel through this power that she's gotten. But she has this mage that sort of is her guide or helper or whatever, and it turns out he's Merlin from way back. And I'm pretty sure it's urban fantasy because it's not a straightforward romance, but it's freaking hilarious. It's so funny. It's one of the funniest series I've read, and I used to be obsessed with it. And then there was a long wait between books, and I didn't really get back into it. And so now I'm like, oh, I got to check back in on Cassie and see what's going on. But there's a scene where she ends up in the catacombs of Paris. She does a time shift, and she ends up like way back in the Dark Ages or whatever, when the catacombs were first built, in the dark, in the water, and then she doesn't have the power to get out of it. And I love the dynamics with her power, is that she's got a lot of power, but she can't use it all the time. So there's limitations on it. Which I think is one of the best ways to write characters like that, because if they're all powerful, then what's the point, right?
Right.
There's no
for
challenge.
sure.
But it's just really funny.
Well, I don't really read a lot of quote unquote funny books, but I don't know. I like it. It sounds interesting. I like your description of it. So, might be fun for those that like a little comedy with their urban fantasy, right?
Yeah. And if you can stomach time travel, because sometimes time travel can be really tough, right? Because you have to keep track of, what happened when and what it caused. And if you're me and you're really analytical, you're thinking about, wait, would it have happened that way? Would it have spawned parallel universes? And then you start thinking about theory, and then you're totally not in the story.
Girl, look, don't get me started on time travel. Me and my pop culture co-host, we are constantly ragging on TV shows because losing continuity with time travel. I mean, so yes. I know I would feel that way with a book as well. Like, come on, it just doesn't follow the rules, or you've forgotten things. So it's definitely hard for authors sometimes without the proper editing and notes to stay, true to what they started when they created the world, but
that's true. I imagine they kind of have they're like characters. The worlds are their own characters, and they just change. People always ask me, I edit, so people always ask me, don't you want to write? Don't you want to write a book? And I'm like, I would love to write a book, but I don't hear voices in my head. And every author I've ever talked to has said that they do. That's what they don't write the stories. Their characters write the stories. And I think that's really cool. And I wish I could do that too.
Me too. People always ask me that too, just because I read a lot. But I'm like, I think I'm a reader, not a writer, because some of this stuff, I'm like, I don't know how they come up with this. I guess I don't think I would be very good at it. But,
yeah, right?
Yeah. But I did think of one more, since we're in the States and all, Caldwell, New York. And you mentioned this earlier, the Black Dagger Brotherhood series. by J.R. Ward. I'm telling you, I love it. I just finished recently The Chosen, which is, I think, the 15th book in that series.
So far.
Yes. It's like a saga. It just goes on and on and on. And, this is vampires. It's a brotherhood that, I guess they're all about keeping the lessers who are, the servants of the devil off the streets and keeping their society a secret. But it's definitely really good. It's one of those things where I have to, full disclosure, I have mentioned this in my reviews in the past. If you are a stickler for slang, you don't like a lot of slang and a lot of unusual names that are spelled funky, you might want to stay away from this. But if you can get past, that her characters are kind of thug-like in some ways here and there. So you might hear some slang. You're definitely going to hear, what's kicking or popping or I don't know, whatever, what's good, all kind of phrases. And the names are somewhat difficult to pronunciate if you are trying to sound them out phonetically. So it's not that at all. But it's cool. I love the world. It definitely, obviously, if I'm reading the 15th book, I think it's good. So it's definitely for a unique group of people, I think, that like this kind of story. But
yeah, I think when I recommend Black Dagger to people, and it used to be one of the, like, every review I'd be like, you might like Black Dagger Brotherhood, because I'd read it so much, right? It was one of the only things that I'd read that I just loved so much. And that was back when there were like 8 books, I think, in the series, or 9. But one of the things I always tell people is the first book is the hardest one to get through, because it's kind of a culture shock.
Yes.
When you start reading it. And they introduce a lot of characters pretty fast, and everything's new, and you don't really understand the world. Now, back when this first came out, paranormal was a younger genre, and it wasn't so tropey as it is now. So maybe people coming into it now wouldn't be as shocked, but it definitely is a bit of an adjustment. I say that if you get through book 2 and you're still not loving it, it's probably not for you. But if you like book 2, that's pretty similar to the rest of the series.
Yes, I agree with that. That first book, I mean, I love the story. I remember enjoying the story, but I was really hung up on all the phrases and the different words for things, and it definitely was an adjustment. But once you get into the zone, if you like it, then for sure, I totally agree. It might be a good option. But if you can't get with it, just give up.
And Wrath is also very alpha, super, super mega alpha, because he's the king, right? So it makes sense. So people who are turned off by alpha males, like super extreme alpha males, immediately don't like that book. The other guys are, I mean, they're all alphas in some way, but they're not quite as much as him.
I know. He is very alpha. I mean, even in The Chosen, are you caught up?
No, I had a little bit of trauma with that series.
Oh, no. Okay.
I don't know if I call it trauma. Girl, I love gay romance. And Blake, Quinn, I wanted that relationship so bad. So bad. And it took, how many books did she tease that relationship over? It was like, I don't know, 5 books or something, where you're like, they're totally a couple, and they're a couple, but they're not getting together. And then you have these 3 guys who are basically brothers, but are never inducted. And then they start talking about these other people that I don't care anything about. Yeah. I'm like skipping, like, okay, Blay and Quinn's book. I was so disappointed because half the book was not about Blay and Quinn.
Yeah, they didn't get a full dedicated book. They were like, you're right, they got half of a book maybe.
Yeah, so the result was that the other guys who were the other half of the book, I don't even like them. I don't like those characters because they took away, in my mind, from the story that I wanted to read. And I suspect it had something to do with the content, and maybe she was uncomfortable writing it, or the publisher was I don't know. But after that, it was hard for me to carry on, and at a certain point, I just was sort of like, I don't want to do it. But you know what? I came back. I think I read The King. I got up to The King, and I read that, and I really liked it. And I thought, it's like a reboot, right?
Well, let me tell you, The Chosen, Blay and Quinn, they are half of this book again. So,
oh, really? Okay, good.
Yes. So it's too strong. It's like 2 couples, I guess, that are the main points of interest. And then, of course, everyone else. We're so deep into the story, you're going to see characters coming and going every book. But it is a main storyline with Quinn and Blay that's like seriously serious. It ties into The Chosen because Chosen and Quinn had the twins.
That's
I don't know
right.
if you knew that. Yeah,
I knew that she was pregnant. I haven't gotten as far as they had kids yet.
Okay. Oh my, I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's fine.
But you guys, before I get up, I could talk about that series for a long time. So.
Yeah, I know. Me too. That's a different podcast. Mm-hmm. I think I've pretty much gone through my list here. I have a couple others, but we've talked about some really great books today.
I agree. You guys, definitely, if you've read some of these books that we've mentioned, feel free to, tweet at us. Sue's info is in the description below, and let us know. Or if there's some that you've traveled to in your literary passport and you want to share, let me know, let Sue know. I'm always looking to add books to that TBR list. I don't know about you, Sue, but I am.
I'm a little bit of a masochist that way, in that I love adding books to it. The problem is pulling books off of it, because sometimes you don't put books on it. You just buy new books.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a problem. It's a book nerd problem.
Book nerd problems. That's right.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, I guess we're done for today. But you guys, be sure to check out Sue's podcast. The link is below in the show notes. You'll want to be around, because next week we'll finish this conversation, but we're going to take a twist on it. So you want to share what we'll be doing next week on your podcast?
So this may change, but the idea that we're talking about right now is we've talked about a lot of places that we've been to, that we've stamped our passport. But because we have these crazy long TBR lists, like I'm sure all of you guys do too, we want to talk about the places that we really like. This is our chance to organize these TBRs and prioritize them, right? So like, I'm going to come up with a list of 10 things that I'm going to say, okay, by the end of this year, I'm going to read these books.
Right. Yeah.
These are the next stamps on my passport.
I agree. That's a great idea. Let's do number 10, because that will actually hold me accountable to my TBR list.
Oh man, the struggle is real. It is real.
Yeah, I know. I'm so far behind right now. So this will actually motivate me. And maybe I'll actually go through and see exactly where all these places, all these books take place. Maybe I'll go through my top 50 and pick the places that look most interesting that I haven't already checked off on the past.
Yeah, or time periods that you haven't been to.
Yeah, or time periods. Yep, exactly. So that'll be fun. You guys join us there over on her podcast. And yeah, like I said, the links are below. Thank you so much, Sue, for joining me today. It's been a blast. I really appreciate you collaborating with me. It's been fun, and I look forward to part 2.
It has been really fun for me, too. I always love to talk about books. It's my favorite thing. So thank you for having me, and I am also looking forward to part 2. Until next time.
Yes. Happy reading. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in and downloading today's episode. If you are enjoying the book chat episodes and would like to show your support, there are a few things you can do. First, you can head on over to iTunes and give a positive 5-star review. You can follow me on Twitter at Shelf Addiction. You can follow the Shelf Addiction podcast on Spreaker, the only place where you can listen live and get broadcast notifications so that you never miss a live episode. Most importantly, you can share the podcast with friends and family that love books and audiobooks. Thank you for listening, and until next time, happy reading.